ॐ अज्ञानतिमिरन्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाखया चक्षुरुन्मीलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। नमो ॐ विष्णुपादाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्तस्वामिनिति नामिने। नमस्ते सरस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेषा शून्यवादी पाश्चात्यदेशतारिणे। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासदि गौरभक्तवृंद। हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। So Shaunaka Rishi is further describing about Lord Kapila. In the previous verse we saw Sri Shaunaka Rishi is glorifying the Supreme Lord, that although the Supreme Lord is unborn and he is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, still he took his birth as a son of Kardama Muni, as Kapila. And that does not mean that he became a son of a mortal. The Supreme Lord always appears through his internal potency. And the most important work for which the Lord descended was to disseminate the transcendental knowledge for the benefit of whole human race. So further, he is glorifying the Supreme Lord in the form of Kapila, who came to this material world specifically to give transcendental knowledge about the Supreme Lord. So he's saying here, Nahi asya varshmanaha pumsam. There is no one who is superior than the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Because there may be many propounders of knowledge, so many people, but there is no one who is more knowledgeable than the Supreme Lord. As Krishna says, Vedaham sammitani, everything is known to me. And we see in other words also Krishna says, from all the Vedas I am to be known. Vedescha sarve ahameva vidya. Vedanta krit vedavid. I am the knower of the Veda. So no one can claim to be greater than the Supreme Lord. He is the greatest propounder of philosophy, of knowledge about the absolute truth. Prabhupada quotes in the purport from Bhagavad Gita. In Bhagavad Gita it is stated, no one can be equal to or greater than the Supreme Personality of God. Mattaha parataram nanya kinchit asti dhananjaya. O Arjuna, understand, there is nothing superior than me. Mattaha parataram na anya. There is nothing which exists which is superior than me. And then Prabhupada quotes from the Vedic literature also that the same truth is mentioned in the Vedic literatures also. Nityo nityanam chetanas chetananam eko vaya bahudati vidadhati kaman. That one singular Supreme Personality of Godhead, he maintains all other innumerable living entities. He is the one who maintains all of them. So, in that, it is very nicely explained right from uncountable living entities, very difficult to count. Sa anantaya kalpate. It's not practical even to count how many living entities are existing in the material world, in varieties of different forms of life. But the Supreme Lord maintains all of them. So Prabhupada asks a question: should a devotee worry about his maintenance? Sometimes we start thinking, what about our maintenance? So should a devotee even think about his maintenance? If Krishna is maintaining everyone, all living entities, including demoniac people, Krishna is maintaining. It's just like the government maintains both the citizens as well as the prisoners. So will the government or the king, will he not maintain his own people, his own relatives, his own family? Isn't it? So actually it is foolish if a devotee starts thinking, what about my maintenance? So Prabhupada, in one of his lectures, points this out very nicely. There is no limit to the jivas. No one can count them. Ananta means they are without limit. All these jivas, living entities, are being maintained by the Supreme One. We cannot conceive how many living entities are being maintained by the Supreme Lord. All the great elephant, small ant, all 84 lakh species of life are maintained by Bhagavan. Why do we have to worry that He will not maintain us? Those who are devotees of the Lord and have taken shelter at His lotus feet, leaving everything aside simply to render service unto Him, will certainly be cared for. Somebody who has given up everything and taken just to the service of the Lord, as Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, this is the order of Krishna also, Sarva Dharman Parityajya Mam Ekam Sharanam Vraja. So Prabhupada is saying, not only Krishna will maintain, He will even protect. Aham tvam sarve papebhyo mokshashyami ma shucha. So maintenance is different. Not only Krishna will maintain, He will even give protection. So this is what Krishna is promising in Bhagavad Gita. And then Prabhupada is talking about Krishna consciousness movement. In our Krishna consciousness movement, we have over 100 centers and Krishna is maintaining all. None of our devotees are employed for independent income. Yet they are all being maintained. Sometimes we think about, no, independently I will earn, maybe, okay, I will practice devotional service also. But actually we are seeing, Prabhupada is saying here, Krishna is maintaining. If Krishna is maintaining all other living entities, will Krishna not maintain His devotees? In Bhagavad Gita, Krishna never says, do this, do that, and I will maintain you. And Krishna is not saying, you do this and you do that, then I will maintain you. Krishna is saying, no, give up everything. Krishna is saying, we may be thinking, I have to do this to maintain myself, I have to do that to maintain. Krishna is saying, nothing doing. Give up everything. Sarva Dharman. You are this dharma, you are Nija dharma, you are Swadharma. Give up all those considerations, just surrender unto me and I will do whatever is required. That is what Krishna is saying. Rather, He states, not only He will maintain, but He will also protect us from the results of our sin, from sinful karma. This assurance is there. Actually, how much this is true for the devotees? This is very much true for all living entities. Specifically in human life, Vedic literatures are again and again saying, Rishabh Dev is saying to his sons, human life should not be wasted just for maintaining this body and the soul together. That is not what human life is meant for. So he says, Tasyeva heto prayateta kovida. In this human form of life, do not endeavor like hogs and dogs, just for the maintenance of this body. And then Prabhupada quotes this and says, Krishna is saying, Tallabhyate dukkhavat anyatah sukham. According to the laws of karma, as one is going to get miseries in this world without even asking, similarly, anyataha sukham, he will obtain even happiness. So this is, even for a karmi, this direction is given. Why do you have to endeavor so hard for your maintenance? If dukkha is coming on its own accord, then sukha will not come. You are not going and asking for dukkha. Dukkha is coming. Why you have to endeavor so much for sukha, for your maintenance? That will come. So where is the question the devotee should think about like this for his maintenance? Even for a common people, this is the direction given. Why you have to worry? Isn't it? So Prabhupada says, in the material world, no one is spared from the miseries. No one is spared from the miseries. There is a very nice example Prabhupada gives about that why we should work hard to get rid of miseries. Isn't it? Whole material existence is just trying to get rid of miserable condition of life. This is how we are wasting our life. And actually no one can get out. No one can get. Without the mercy of the Lord, there is no possibility of getting out of miserable condition of life. So Prabhupada gives an example that there is a saying in Bengali. The meaning of that Bengali saying is that there is wet cow dung and there is dry cow dung. So the dry cow dung, it is being put in the fire and it is being burnt. And the wet cow dung is laughing. Ha ha, very nice. I am safe and you are being burned to ashes. But actually it is foolishness. Why? Because after some time, this wet cow dung, that will also become dry and it will also be put into the fire. It is meant, cow dung is meant for burning in the fire. Similarly, this material world, it is dukhalyam, it is made in such a way that we are going to be miserable here in this material world. So why do we have to endeavor so hard to get out of miserable condition of this life? Isn't it? Just to avoid miseries. So what do the Vedic literature says? Just tolerate this miserable condition of life. Don't work hard so much for your maintenance. Utilize your time and energy for understanding, getting that happiness which you could not get in any of the material planetary system, whether higher, upari, adaha. You went high, you went low, nowhere you were able to get that kind of eternal happiness. For that you endeavor in this human form of life. So this is what Shaunaka Rishi is saying about the Supreme Personality of Godhead. No one is greater than that Supreme Personality of Godhead. He is the maintainer. He is the most knowledgeable. And next, Shaunaka Rishi also says, Varimnaha Sarva Yogina. He is the most worshipable personality among all the yogis. So, devotees are not attracted to any so-called people who may be having some great mystic power, great strength, great different kinds of capacities one can attain by mystic yoga. Isn't it? Devotees are not attracted to all those things. Devotees are attracted to the master of all mystics. Varimnaha Sarva Yogina. And Prabhupada explains in today's purport, anyone who is actually associated with that Supreme Lord, who is Varimnaha Sarva Yogina, who is the most worshipful of all the yogis, he is accepted as the first class yogi. So why a devotee will be attracted to so-called yoga if he is a first class yogi? Isn't it? Anyone who is associated with Varimnaha Sarva Yoginam, he is a first class yogi. Krishna also describes in Bhagavad Gita 6th chapter, Yoginam api sarvesham madagata antaratmana. Right? So he is a topmost yogi. So why a devotee will be attracted to so-called yogas? He is not attracted. Then Prabhupada explains, these yogis, they may acquire some different kinds of strength and powers. But actually no one can be more powerful than Krishna. What power they can acquire? We saw all these so-called asuras in Vrindavan, all by their different kinds of power they had acquired, they tried to kill Krishna only. Isn't it? All these different asuras, all with their yogic powers. So Krishna, devotees are not behind yogic power at all. Rather, Prabhupada is saying in today's purport, this is very essential to understand, the devotees, by constant association with the Supreme Lord, who is the master of all yogis, they become as good as the Supreme Lord. So devotee does not have to even acquire, does not have to even think about acquiring. He becomes as good as the Supreme Lord. And then further Prabhupada says, sometimes more than the Supreme Lord. Of course, by the mercy of the Supreme Lord. More than the Supreme Lord, also by the mercy of the Supreme Lord. Prabhupada gives the example. Lord Rama, as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he had to construct bridge to cross over. But the devotee of Lord Rama, Hanuman, just by the mercy of the Lord, just by chanting the holy name of Lord Rama, in one jump he was able to cross over the ocean without having to construct any kind of bridge. And he went to Lanka. So devotees can become more powerful than the even so-called yogis, and by the mercy of the Lord, even sometimes more powerful than the Lord himself. Isn't it? So much so we can actually see that even in the case of Amrish Maharaj, when Durvasa Muni wanted to, he manufactured a asura to kill Amrish Maharaj. And Durvasa went to Vaikuntha Loka, pleaded before the Lord, and the Lord is saying, I cannot give you protection. Even I cannot give you protection. If somehow or other Amrish Maharaj spares you, then you may be protected. The Supreme Lord cannot give protection. And when Amrish Maharaj spared him, then it was possible that he was spared. So why a devotee will have to think about some petty yogic power or all these things? Devotee is not attracted. That is what Shaunaka Rishi is highlighting. can understand what is the position of the Supreme Lord whom we are worshipping. Kapila, the Supreme Lord, he is not an ordinary personality. What knowledge he is going to expound? He is the Supreme Personality of Godhead himself. And then, finally, Shaunaka Rishi is saying, what a great personality this Kapila Muni is. We must hear again and again about the activities of the Lord. Yesterday, when I was recording a class on Krishna Katha, I was reading about Akrura. And the same thing Akrura is also repeating when he is going. Prabhupada says we should learn from Akrura how to visit the holy place of the Lord like Vrindavan. When he went from Mathura to Vrindavan, he was so much absorbed only in glorifying the Lord, only in thinking about the Lord, he did not even know that he has reached Vrindavan from Mathura. And in one of his consideration, when he is thinking about this, he is so eager. Now I am going to have darshan of the Lord in Vrindavan. So eagerly he is waiting, and he is thinking, Kamsa has done a great, upkar to me. It's a great blessing in disguise, even though I am going as a messenger of Kamsa, but he does not know. For what he has sent me, I am going to have the darshan of the Lord. I am going to see the lotus feet of the Lord, whose lotus feet are worshipped by Lord Shiva, Narada, and even Mother Lakshmi. Such lotus feet I am going to have darshan of them. So he is thinking like that. And on the way he is thinking how the Supreme Personality of Godhead is so merciful on the living entity that the Lord comes like an ordinary human being, performs his wonderful leelas so that we can remember, we can chant, we can hear all those leelas. And simply by remembering, simply by hearing, simply by chanting those glories, one can become completely free from all inauspiciousness in his life. Because he was thinking like this, that I am going on a mission from Kamsa as a mission of an enemy, but the Supreme Lord is there in the heart of the devotees. And definitely he understands that I am not actually a missionary of Kamsa. I am a devotee of the Lord. So he's thinking like this. And specifically he says that even these leelas of the Lord, which the Lord performed in Vrindavan, killing the asuras, all these leelas, they are filled with so much spiritual potency that just by hearing, chanting, glorifying, remembering them, one's whole life can become completely auspicious. And that is what Prabhupada is saying. It is so potent that we should read Bhagavad Gita again and again, Bhagavatam again and again. I'll read that very nicely. Prabhupada is saying. Just like in Bhagavatam also it is a Shotro Manobhirama. It is very pleasing. Not only it is like a medicine for the conditioned soul, but medicine generally is very bitter. Nobody likes to take medicine, but imagine what kind of medicine this is. Hearing Krishna Katha is a different kind of medicine. It is very pleasing to the heart, very pleasing to the mind. And when is it pleasing? When specifically we hear in the association of devotees, then it is very, very pleasing. That is very important. So I'll just read that and then we will stop. Prabhupada is saying. So Prabhupada explains that because Krishna gives pleasure to his devotees, all his activities gives pleasure to his devotees, he is called Govinda. This is also very important. Govinda should not be thought like he will satisfy my senses. No. By his glories, by his holy name, by all these transcendental things, he completely satisfies our senses. That is the meaning of Govinda. So Prabhupada is saying, Varimanaha, the most worshipful of all yogis, to hear from Krishna is the real pleasure of the senses. You see, when we hear from Krishna or when we hear about Krishna, that is actually the real pleasure to the senses, and that is why he is called Govinda. Therefore, he is known as Govinda, for by his words, by his teaching, by his instruction, by everything connected with him, he enlivens the senses. Whatever he instructs is from transcendental position, and his instruction being absolute are non-different from him. Hearing from Krishna or his expansion or plenary expansion like Kapila is very pleasing to the senses. That is why Shaunaka Rishi is saying, because before we begin to hear from Lord Kapila, let us understand how important it is to hear from the Supreme Lord directly. How important it is. So before the subject matter comes, he is explaining about what subject matter, why it is important to hear. Is very pleasing to the senses. Bhagavad Gita can be read or heard many times because it gives great pleasure. The more one reads Bhagavad Gita, the more he gets the appetite to read and understand it. See, this is a formula for getting interest in Bhagavad Gita. Sometimes we may not be very inclined, very interested. Prabhupada is saying, read it. More and more you read, the more and more you will get appetite to read more. You see. The more one gets appetite to read and understand it, and each time he gets new enlightenment. Don't think it is a stale. Sometimes devotees think, ho gaya Bhagavatam, I finished 10 cantos, over. No. Spiritual subject matter is like that. It is filled with Krishna's potency. Nava rasam. Every moment you read, the many times you read, every moment you will be able to appreciate newer and newer understanding of the Vedic knowledge. That is the meaning of Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam. So Prabhupada finally says, and each time he gets new enlightenment. That is the nature of transcendental message. Similarly, we find transcendental happiness in Srimad Bhagavatam. The more we hear, the more we chant the glories of the Lord, the more we become happy. So we'll stop with this. Grantraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada ki jai.